Ricky.
And I'm Joe, and this is Season 7, Episode 2 of the Beer and Broadband Podcast, slated to come out on April 8th, 2024. And I can actually read the beer this time, as opposed to last time when it was tiny print. I'm telling you, getting older, man, it makes it hard on the eyesight. But we are doing Founders KBS, that's the Kentucky Breakfast Stout, Chocolate Cherry Imperial Stout aged in bourbon barrels. And it says... oh, it's an 11.6 ABV beer. And it says, our flagship bourbon barrel aged Imperial Stout shows off its more romantic side with KBS chocolate cherry. The rich sweetness of chocolate and slight coffee bitterness blend perfectly with the brightness of cherry juice to bring you an alluring sensory experience perfect for cozying up with your sweetie.
That is very sweet. That's a very good description. It's not a bad beer. I really, really like the chocolate. I don't like the cherry. My problem is this is very smooth, very dark. I love that kind of coffee chocolateness to it. The bourbon flavor is also really good in it. But that mixture of bourbon with cherry gives me like cough medicine vibes. It doesn't taste bad. Like, I want to say that. It's not, I'm going to finish drinking what I have. But where like I want a little hint of cherry, I'm like, that's a little hint of Robitussin. You know?
All right, so I don't agree that it's a little hint of Robitussin, but I do get like a cough medicine, but it's like a children's cough medicine, like Pebbles cough syrup or something like that.
Or hey, children's Robitussin. That's
maybe,
what I was
maybe
thinking of.
maybe that is, and you've had more experience with that lately
Yeah.
because I don't normally get children's Robitussin, so that could be it. It's not. I kind of like it.
It's not bad.
But
Like,
I like the Robitussin-y flavor.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Like, like the medicinal stuff that I used to drink when I was a kid. This is, two things that brought me back. Like last episode, it was the oatmeal stout, like grandma's oatmeal cookies, right? This one, I'm sick and my mom's giving me like cough syrup, but I had to choose between the banana and the grape, or the banana and the cherry, or something like that, depending on what there was. And I chose the cherry because the rest of them suck.
Oh, yeah.
Like the banana flavored one, I'd get it and they'd be like, it's banana flavored, you should like it. And I'd be like, ugh. Sometimes I'd throw up, actually.
Yeah.
So
the only two ones you really see anymore are grape and cherry. I think it's because they're really the only ones you can do that don't taste so artificial and makes the medicine worse.
Yeah, absolutely. So it kind of reminds me of that. And because it hints on that, like it takes me back to a happy place because I didn't have to take the banana medicine. It's not even because it tasted good.
It's
because,
the relief of no banana.
Yeah, it's like, is this going to be bad? And then it's not bad, and I'm not like gagging and stuff. And my mom's not having to hold my nose while she pours it in my mouth or something.
Up next, Founders chocolate banana.
I can promise you, if there was I've made a banana wine, and I would absolutely have a banana Foster's thing. And if there was a banana Foster's beer, I would try it. But if it was something that was like, banana medicine or banana beer or something like that, I'd be like, all right, I'm probably not going to drink all this. I can promise you it would create some sort of bad memory in me. Yeah.
So yeah, my takeaway, not bad, not perfect. I'd almost say, like, I'm not sure they could have done it better. I think it really is just a problem of the taste of bourbon with cherry together. It has an association, right? Like something with that kind of chemically alcoholic bite with that, like, I mean, I'm sure they use like actual cherry juice. Like, I'm sure it's natural.
But I think it's the actual cherry juice, because cherry juice versus like actually putting in like stone fruit cherry like stuff in it is different.
Oh, you think if it had like all the pectins of the flesh and stuff, it would have worked better?
Yeah, it would have worked better. I absolutely think it would have worked better.
Maybe.
Yeah, because I made that cherry coffee stout that the first time it was good, but because it had all that sediment and stuff in it from the like unfiltered honey, it didn't like work out very well. But like buckwheat, especially a Bochet buckwheat, has a lot of bourbon flavors in it.
Yeah.
And I think that this, is like an almost great beer. This is just a good beer.
Yeah. I think you're right to that sense that to make it better, they'd probably have to go off formula.
Yeah.
Like they couldn't just add something to what they already have. They'd have to make a whole new thing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You'd have to like add some cherry. So I mean it's not that bad. It is pretty good, and there are probably people out there that love this sort of thing because like me, but I just know that not everyone's going to love it.
Yeah. I'd almost rather they like double down than went just like hard dark chocolate.
That would have
Right.
been good too with this one. Like dark, like super dark chocolate, super coffee, and just a hint of stone fruit cherry.
I'm
like
not even sure I need the hint of cherry. Like the hint of cherry wouldn't be as bad there because it would be a sweet.
It,
It's the
it
problem
comes
that
out with
sweetness.
the stout anyways. You're going to get like that hint of stone fruit and cherry in it anyways. So like just like having the hint would have been fine.
Yeah, if you're talking about just what's natural
Yeah.
in the bourbon process or the bourbon aging.
Well, no, I meant in the stout. Stouts just naturally have like those stone fruit kind of flavors when you add bourbon to them.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know, but yeah, if you're talking about just not putting any extra, just what's naturally in there, yeah. Because I think the only thing that's off-putting to me is that little bit of cherry sweetness that comes in at the same time that like the bourbon burn does. So it becomes this much more pronounced, like alcoholic cherry flavor, you know?
Now I know that we're going to be doing this for 15, 20 minutes. And this beer is going to open up a little bit. I wonder
Yeah,
if I
pour some
pour
now,
you
try
a
it at
little
the end.
bit, yeah, and I have myself a little bit, and we try it at the end, and then we come back and we talk about it. I
Yeah.
wonder if that'll change the flavor because it is cold right now.
Yeah, when it warms up, it might come a little bit more in the forefront. It might
Yeah.
be better that way. Yeah.
Because I like even right now, like I just poured myself a little extra,
Mhm.
and it's starting to warm up, and it's changing some of those flavors. So
Okay.
this might be a better beer after it's rested for a little bit.
Sure, we can give that a shot.
Yeah. All right. So you read the article about hotel locks. I read the article about hotel locks. I know it just comes down to like people not using best practices. So, you know, TLDR, if you want to skip ahead to the next topic and you don't want to hear about the hotel locks, you don't want to be freaked out about that. Hotel locks aren't safe anymore.
Well, yeah, at least not from certain brands.
From most of the brands that are in most hotels.
Yeah, it really comes down to, you know, maybe I'll first talk philosophically about how hotels and places like that, just in general, are not secure.
Yep.
Multiple people entering and leaving, not a lot of oversight into who is coming and going. You know, apart from your room, that's hopefully only just the staff. You know, you can just walk into any hotel, and if you look like you know where you're going, you can go to any floor. Very few of those card lock the elevators. You know, and you could just be standing around waiting for somebody not to close their door well enough, and you can just walk in.
Just walk
So
right in.
already, you should always bring your own security stuff. Use the safes if they have safes, as long as they're not digital, or at least you know, at least have a number pad. I've seen some safes now that you can use your room key on. That's ridiculous. It defeats the whole purpose. But you know, do stuff like that. But what this comes down to is those little scanners. I mean, it's just a card scanner.
Yep.
And you can try and secure those all days long, but it's an arms race. It's the same arms race we have with debit cards and credit cards and anything like that. Somebody can scan
Especially
it.
anything that's got NFC. So any of those tap credit
Yep.
cards and stuff like that have the same flaws.
Yep, exactly. They're all there. And reading through this article, which was a very well written article, I really like Wired. They do a good job at telling a story. I knew the whole time it's like, and then they're gonna drop the bomb.
It's going to be an algorithm problem.
We're talking about all these hackers that went to these events and figured it out, and they were like, it's all white hat. You know, they were supposed
Yep.
to do it. They were there for an event to do it. But you're gonna find it. You're gonna find it in there. Always, it's something that could have been prevented. It's like, and they're using an algorithm that for the last 10 years has been known to be. It's like, there you go. It's like your encryption algorithm was busted, and you had your own proprietary software on top of it, and so you said that's good enough. But think about that. And if we dumb this down and say, hey, two-factor authentication for the most part is safe, because it's two-factor, it's a two-step process. So if one of the steps fails, you're still secure.
Yep.
Right? That's not any different than what's happening with these hotel rooms. They've got a proprietary piece of software as one factor, and they've got the algorithm that does the encryption for the second. No one that listens to this podcast would hopefully say one-factor authentication is secure. But that's essentially what they were doing. If you've got a multifaceted security system and one piece breaks, you don't say, "Oh, hey, we've got the other pieces. We're fine."
Yep. You go and fix that piece immediately.
Yep, because it was there for a reason.
Yep.
To keep you completely secured. You know, as soon as you start dropping pieces, you're opening yourself up to those vulnerabilities that at that point are well known, so they can be operated very, very quickly. You know, if there's a bug in your code and it's just first got released, it takes a while for people to find it. But when you're using protocols or algorithms that are known to be faulty, that are well documented, they already know how to do it. Once they figure out that new little bug in yours or whatever else it is, off to the races.
Yep.
Because everything else is already well known.
Everything else.
You know, so you got to be careful with that stuff.
All right. So, hotel locks aren't safe. A lot of the hotels in Las Vegas, use these locks.
Yep.
Do you know what event happens in Las Vegas at the same time as another event that happens in Las Vegas?
Most things, in all honesty.
Well,
it's a huge hub.
like there's two events specifically that I'm talking about that are like, I'm gonna laugh about this, but it's also kind of horrific.
Well, I know a lot of the hackathon events all happen around the same time.
Black Hat, all right, and the AVN Awards. So for the adult video networks.
Oh
no! And they happen like right down the hall from each other, from what I understand.
That's already bad. Why are you putting those two groups of people together?
Well, I mean, okay, look, nerds need love too, and not all of them are like bad people. So like, if a couple of people from like stuff like that want to like intermingle with the nerds, that's fine, right? Or the nerds want to intermingle with the people.
See, I was thinking the opposite direction. Like if it was a white hat convention and the AVNs, I wouldn't be as worried.
It is a white hat convention. They call it Black Hat.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
It's the white hat. This is where all this stuff like comes out. But there are going to be people that are like going up to the hotel rooms and like standing near the like locks, and they're like unlocking all of them because they're like, see, it works, and they're freaking out these like women who are going there, and they're already like,
who's left their iCloud open?
Yeah, they have no idea. So it's ridiculous. I was talking to a friend of mine that works. She doesn't work in that industry, but she works at like for one of the retailers there. She does like media management stuff. Yeah. And I was talking to her, and I was like, hotel locks aren't secure anymore. She's like, I am buying one of those things that you like put on the door, like strap it in. Like everybody should have one of those anyways. But like, seriously, this is ridiculous. The people that do that, like nobody should be breaking into anyone's hotel room. But the fact that this is like so well known, and the people that make these door locks already knew this stuff.
Yeah.
And they're just kind of like, whatever. It wasn't that big of a deal. They'd have to like be able to overcome the other thing too.
Yeah, I think that's the real story.
They already did overcome the other thing. That's the problem. There are people that have already exploited this in the wild. And are able to like bust these locks wide open.
Absolutely. But I think that's what the real story should have been. Is why is this company that was using stuff they knew was faulty saying, but hey, our custom software on top will keep you safe? Because at that point, it's almost like saying you're going back to physical keys. You're saying the actual thing that keeps the door locked is insecure.
Yeah.
And the real problem, what's keeping you actually safe, is that even though anybody can make a key, they don't know what key goes to what door, right? Well, go to any mystery novel, 1800s. Who has the skeleton key, the key that opens everything? Well, okay, that's essentially what you were just waiting for.
Yep.
You were waiting for somebody to figure it out, and now they can just open all of them. You had how many years to go in and fix your algorithm issues? And, that's ignoring the legacy devices. I can understand someone bought a lock 15 years ago. It's not internet enabled. That's a lot harder to update. But you still should have been making people aware and said, hey, we are updating our stuff. All of our new stuff doesn't use this anymore. You're vulnerable if you do. Yes, it'll cost you money to replace your locks, but you should do it. And at that point, you've informed the user, because that's the thing. there's such a low bar
Yeah.
to no longer be legally responsible for stuff. Like, as soon as you come out and say, "Hey, our product's vulnerable. Here's what you need to do to fix it," you're off the hook.
Yeah.
All you had to do is go
Well,
tell everybody.
You may not be off the hook, but you've reduced your liability to a very small amount.
Yeah, you're as long as those communications went out, you're probably responsible for anything that happened before it went out. But after it went out, you can say, "Hey, our product line is fixed. We informed you as the user what you needed to do. You didn't do it. That's your fault."
Yep, that's your problem. Which is like something, right?
Yeah, it's something. Like, they should have just done that. Because this couldn't have happened if, when that happened, they said, "Hey, this algorithm's been vulnerable. We're changing our algorithm to one that isn't known to be vulnerable. We're going to automatically update everyone that is internet enabled. Awesome. If you're not internet enabled, this is what you need to do." And done. And then this news story would have been, old hotels who are not updating their security are putting people at risk.
Yes, it would have been
Right?
all on the hotel, not on
Exactly.
not on the company.
It wouldn't be 3 million locks are vulnerable because this company didn't do what they should have done.
Yeah,
You know?
and it's probably more than that. It's,
Oh, yeah.
Probably way more than that, because when China makes something, they tend to like.
That's a great point. 3 million from this company have been released, but who knows how many knockoffs there are out
Exactly,
there? Or
using the
copies.
same exact software and algorithms.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. All right. AI isn't ready, but nurse AI chatbots already exist. Now, this has always been a thing. Like, even before we had like these specific LLM things, and I know we talked to death about LLMs last episode, but like the article that I linked to from the Guardian is talking about the like big healthcare, like stuff like governmental run healthcares, like the the national healthcare system in England, and there's other places that are looking to do this. I already know that there are companies like within the U.S. that are looking to have this, like, well, if you'll use the nurse AI chatbot, whatever, and they're scraping up all this information, pulling stuff back in, and probably going to give it to your insurance company about whatever. So, that's terrifying, but
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. It's a very interesting topic, but the article linked points out another issue with AI, which is the sensationalization of it. A lot of what that person's opinion piece was on was a lot of misinformation and things that are not actually happening.
Yeah.
So when we start talking about nurse chatbots, we're essentially talking about a more easily to consume, like WebMD, that's already existed for a long time. But AI has existed in the healthcare profession for much longer than this generative AI. So that's exactly like what you said.
Yeah.
And to great effect, the things they have put in. So, like,
to great effect for the companies.
No,
Like,
to great effect in general. Let me hit you with what, because
okay.
I'm talking about something that isn't like what the article was getting at.
Okay.
AI assistants have existed in the medical profession for quite a while, and some of the best ones they've got kind of hit on what we talked about in the very beginning of last episode, of the like low risk, mostly manual, unskilled tasks.
Gotcha. I see where you're going now.
So there's, especially big hospitals have like these little robots that they put test samples in that run it to the lab for them. So the nurse doesn't have to do that. Saves that nurse's time. There are even little talking bots for like children that have been through trauma. They'll put in little things and it talks to them. It's like a teddy bear that talks to you to help that person calm down. What we are starting to see questions about are data entry. And that's where you start getting into you have to make sure, everything's HIPAA compliant and everything like that. I think there's like, it's Hippocratical or something like that. There's a company here in the U.S. that has pretty recently started working on what they're hoping can be an AI assistant that does initial check-in. So like when you're listing off your symptoms and stuff like that, instead of having a nurse has to take their time to write that down and fill out the form, the little AI assistant will fill out the form for you. But the real concern with that is adoption. Like, are you, as the person talking to this chat bot, going to be as open about what is wrong with you as you would with a regular person?
Mm-hmm.
Because nurses are pretty consistently rated the most trusted medical professionals, because the nurses serve the vital role of kind of being the advocate for that patient, right? Like the nurse works with you to find out what's wrong with you, to help give you advice, and to help communicate that to the doctor. Because, you know, maybe not as much in like a family practice, but if you've like been in a hospital, you don't see your doctor very often.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you might be in the room with your doctor. Like, let's say you stay in the hospital for a couple days. You know, my wife had to do that when she gave birth. I had to do that when I got real sick. I was maybe in the room with my doctor for 30 minutes. I was probably in the room with my nurse for hours.
Yeah.
Doing that communication with them. And it is kind of the non-human interactive parts that people are starting to look to try and like AI in the medical field. And it does raise that really interesting question. It's like, sure, hey, something that can fill out that form for me, that's great. As long as there's a human there to review to make sure the form's right before they submit it, that saved my nurse time.
Yeah.
But that was also less time my nurse was in the room building that relationship with the patient. So when it comes down to keeping that firm level of trust between them, is that going to diminish it? You know?
I think earlier what I thought you were going towards was, like having a chat bot where they like talk to you and they like kind of like diagnose your problem.
Yeah.
It is like WebMD, and that has been very successful. And I'm like, okay, look, doing a Google search and then like looking on WebMD and reading an article about your thing is not the same as like something else. And that has been highly successful for companies that try to do marketing or try to like make profit off of people's like search history or sell their data or something like that. But it's not profitable in the way that you were talking about, which is like those are like really good tools. Like those are like the positive things that come out of this stuff. And I wouldn't want to diminish those in any way, shape, form, or fashion.
I think we've talked about it maybe a couple times across the various seasons, but those tools, like how we're talking about, they do exist, and they have existed before AI. I mean, maybe they'll get better with AI, because frankly, they suck today. But they're awful, but you're right. Those are a profit-seeking mechanism that's generally not actually run by the doctors or the medical facility. It's run by the insurance company.
Right.
I got my eyes open to that, to a doctor I worked with at this point probably like 7 or 8 years ago. That's how long ago this was, that these tools already existed. And he had his little iPad that he fills in his forms on and everything like that. And I was going to him for something. I think it was bronchitis, because I used to have chronic bronchitis when I was younger. And I knew it was bronchitis because I get it all the time. I did 2 or 3 times a season. But we'd moved recently up into Cary the first time and had to get a new doctor. And I said, I know this is bronchitis. You get bronchitis all the time. And he's like, yeah, I saw in your medical records you get bronchitis all the time. But I got to give you stuff for this. And I was like, okay, but why? And he showed me his iPad and said, the very first time I see you for something, I have to do what this iPad tells me to do. And if it doesn't work, then you can come back and I can diagnose you the way I want to. But for his insurance to cover him for his malpractice, he had to do what was on that iPad. You know, and that's crazy to me.
Yeah.
That, you know, I think, again, taking it back to last episode, same thing as these people do in tech AI for infrastructure. It's like, okay, sure. Are you less likely to get critical human error by having to do what's on that iPad? Yeah, because it's never going to suggest anything too risky.
Maybe if the algorithm's not broke when you turn it over to a large language model and it's trying to make that decision instead of something that you've already.
Well, yeah, but that's an aside. I'm talking about like 8 years ago, before any of that existed. He had to still use that iPad.
Okay, sorry.
You know,
I misunderstood you.
It made sense for the insurance company to, in the sense of like, hey, this thing isn't, because you generally don't get malpractice for missing something.
Yeah.
Right. Like if someone comes in and you give them a common diagnosis, but it turned out to be cancer, you're not liable for that. You're liable when you mess up the treatment based on the diagnosis. So, okay, maybe I prevent people from doing something kind of stupid every now and then. But you're also now making it more difficult for people to get the care that will actually help them. You're turning what should hopefully be a one visit, one fix into 2 visits, one fix. Because you have to do what they told you to do the first time, which might not work. So, like, that saved the insurance company money. I'm sure the insurance company is paying less out in malpractice now. But the average person's visit is now worse. And that's my big concern when we start automating this sort of stuff, is we're taking these very highly trained medical professionals and we are circumventing their expertise and circumventing their human judgment and circumventing their human responsibility and potentially replacing it with something that doesn't have any of those things.
I think that's my concern too. Is like, you're talking about having someone that is highly trained, that is highly responsible, that has like a code of ethics that they're supposed to follow. And even though there's some evidence that nurses tend to be, especially in American healthcare, they tend to be people that were more like mean girls and stuff like that in high school and college, or mean guys, like these very highly driven, but also kind of like, this is something that I can do, that I can get into, and I have like some power and stuff like that, and like some psychology there. If they're doing a good job at it, it's not necessarily a bad thing.
Yeah, I mean, they're still highly trained medical professionals, and as much as there is certain stigmas, they do still consistently get rated the highest trusted medical professionals because they build those bonds with their patients, because their job role allows them to do that.
Well, and to survive, they generally have to develop coping mechanisms to be able to get along with other people.
Yeah. Or there's a lot that goes into that, but I think at the core of my being, I would rather we automate everything that's not the medicine. Like, if you could tell me someone can run a doctor's office with 2 nurses that'll actually like run the test, because generally a lot of the nurses will also do lab tech stuff in smaller ones. Big hospitals have their own labs, but we've got 3 or 4 people who are all trained medical professionals, and everything that doesn't require that education is automated. You check in at a kiosk, you talk to a little chat bot about your symptoms, then the humans come in and do human medicine, and then you check out at a kiosk and all that. That I would be fine with that, because
I think you should clarify the medicine part, because what you're talking about is the medical interaction, like the being a nurse, the like coming in and diagnosing.
I'm talking about from the moment that someone says, okay, now that I know what's wrong with you, how do we fix it, to the point I pay when I leave. I want everything in between that to be people. With that education, with the judgment, with the ability to look at you and actually see you. Because, there's a lot of judgment call in medicine, especially like family practice medicine, the people that you see all the time. Because, by the time you land in a hospital for something serious, something's really wrong, you're going to get lots of attention, or you're there for some already pre-prescribed thing for like a surgery. But like, I still think about, I showed up with a cough that wouldn't go away for a week and a half to my regular clinic. I was like, yeah, I probably just have bronchitis or something. And she listens like, well, maybe. But I don't know. Just listening to this, it just doesn't sound quite right. So I'd rather send you back with some antibiotics. I'm worried maybe you're getting pneumonia. And then I was the sickest I've ever been in my life, not an hour later. Like, the crazy. Like, I walked into that doctor's office a little sick, and I left already starting to feel like, man, yeah, I guess I am getting worse. Maybe I do have something serious.
Yeah.
And then missed like a week of work because I'm just coughing my lungs out and sleeping like 18 hours a day. A chatbot would not have caught that.
No, a chatbot wouldn't have. It would have just been like, take some Robitussin.
It might have said, hey, you know what? You've got to, it could have made a very sound, normal decision. Could have looked and said, hey, you've got a history of bronchitis. You've been long enough that it sounded like maybe this is bacterial because you haven't fought it off in 7 days like we normally see from viruses. So yeah, I'm going to say, here's a Z-Pack. You've got bronchitis. Well, that wouldn't have done me any good once I had the pneumonia.
Yeah.
And I'm in a family. My wife would have driven me to the hospital. But I was so sick, if I had just been a regular person and I took those antibiotics for a couple
single
days,
person. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's what I meant. Like I'm just a single person just sitting there, in my apartment. I call out of work for a couple days. So I've got bronchitis, and then I've just passed out, and I'm too sick to go anywhere. And like, I could barely get up and walk for some of those days. I was sick, and I wouldn't have had the medicine I needed.
Yeah.
So like, you gotta leave that part, the responsibility part, I think, to humans.
Yeah.
Automate the rest of it, that's fine, but leave that to people.
Especially as new as this stuff is. I mean, we've only had like most of this stuff for like maybe 2-3 years. Well, I mean, I know they've been developing it for longer, but most vaccines aren't really considered to be good. Like I know we just went through the whole, COVID stuff and everything like that, but most vaccines aren't considered to be like really like sound for like years after they've been kind of developed. Now, even though they may be giving them to people and stuff like that, they still don't consider them to be that sound.
Yeah.
And to think that something can make these intelligent decisions about human life after a year, maybe 2, of being like out in the open and like just used generally. I mean, it's not even been quite 2 years.
Yeah. And there's also all sorts of other issues, like once you start getting pharma involved, because like the speed of adoption of drugs is very, very wonky. Like a brand new thing comes out that supposedly does lots of great stuff, can end up not doing it very well or being negative once it hits the general population. On the flip side of that, sometimes we make stuff that's just amazing and nobody really hears about it.
Yeah.
Like, did you know hepatitis C has a cure now?
Yeah.
So many people don't know that.
Yep.
Like, you can just go and take a pill regimen and you don't have hepatitis C anymore.
Yep.
And I'm sure most of the people who had hepatitis C probably knew. Their doctors went out and told them and things like that.
Well, not necessarily true. It's still taught that there's no cure for hepatitis C.
Yeah,
like
I'm sure
medical professionals.
I'm sure there's still plenty of places. I mean, certainly if you pick up a textbook that's more than a couple years old, it's going to say there's
As a
no
matter
cure.
of fact, if you go downstairs and you talk to a person that's downstairs right now doing some stuff, they'll tell you there's no cure for hepatitis C.
Yeah, it's out there.
Yeah.
It exists. It's relatively new, but it's been out for a couple years.
Yeah.
I think it's like 3 or 4 or something like that. Maybe 5.
Like 5. It's 4 years old, I think.
Yeah. They exist. So on one hand, if I had a little AI tool that maybe helped me as a doctor stay up to date on everything, sure, that'd be awesome. I'd love to, as a doctor, know when the latest breakthroughs are happening in a way that's easily ingestible for me. What I don't necessarily want is every brand new drug getting prescribed.
Yeah.
Because you can say, hey, here's this brand new thing, and people take it, and it's like, oh yeah, oops. Turned out, once we hit general population, if you have certain gene expressions, this does bad things to you.
Everybody got colon cancer like really fast.
Well, it doesn't even have to be that. I mean, when you start talking about things that are common, like we've got a better drug to give you for, I'll just say bronchitis again. We found a better way to treat a common ailment. And even if, we went through testing and we tested 1,000, 2,000 people and they were all fine, that's great. But then you find out, oh, actually if you've got this other little symptom, like you've got this already pre-existing condition, or if your liver was weaker than it normally should because of alcoholism or something else, now this hurts you.
Yeah.
That can still be, 0.01% of the population. That's a lot of people when you talk about a common illness.
That was exactly what I was saying about the colon cancer thing. I was just being a dramatist.
Yeah. But, I get it. It can be scary. So yeah, I love the AI stuff for the most part that we're already doing, and I'd love to see that enhanced. But yeah, these talks people are having about tools that don't exist yet, don't build those tools.
Well, I put the article in there because like NHS doesn't have its nurse but there are already existing LLMs that are being used for like these sorts of things they're like in testing. They exist.
Yeah, like don't mainstream those tools.
Yes.
Like there's people building those products. But so far, because I always do additional research for the show.
Nothing's in production yet.
Nothing's really in production. The stuff that's in production is tested, been around for a long time, very well received. Don't go crazy.
Yeah.
Don't go sitting here trying to think you can go make RoboDoc, because it's not gonna happen.
Make Asclepius from Red Dwarf last season. He just went mad after he didn't have any patience anymore.
Mhm.
All right, so we're supposed to test this at the end, the Kentucky Breakfast Stout. I've already had a couple sips as it's warmed up. The cherry is more pronounced in the front.
It
now.
is.
Like you get it, it's stone fruit cherry. It's not. It's like stone fruit plus a little bit of added sweetness on the front. And I thought about that because the oatmeal in the last oatmeal stout also came out more, but it was there enough in the end that it didn't really matter to like bring that up. But this one, I was just kind of like, I wonder if it would make it a better beer. I think if you are going to get this beer and you're a fan of the flavors in it, drink it up front. Drink it after it's warmed up. Sorry, not up front. Drink it after it's warmed up. Just know up front that you're going to want to let it set for a little bit. And
Yeah,
warm up.
and like really warmed up, like almost room temperature. Because I had like a real small pour where that's there for 15 minutes. That did help. It is a lot brighter in the beginning. It still has that little bit of medicinally aftertaste, but it's much more tolerable when you've got that cherry flavor throughout the whole experience.
Yeah, it is. It's like it hits you in the front. It goes up to it's like stone fruit cherry goes up to like a brighter cherry, like sweetness, and then kind of trails off and then comes back up at the end.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like a sine wave.
In the middle, it almost hits that like maraschino in a cocktail type of flavor.
It does. Definitely. It's very much like that sweet cherry.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, I think, I don't know. That's the end of mine. I'll knock it back.
Yeah, I think we're good.
Yeah.
So that recovered. I'll half a star more in my fake made up thing. I don't know why I would have given it before, but it's half a star.
Well, it's not in my top 10. I would still not have a problem with drinking this beer. If I had to choose between this and an IPA, which I know there are some fantastic IPAs out there, but we've talked about I just have like some sort of thing that it either evokes some sort of like bad memory or something like that, but it tastes like gasoline and grass clippings to me. If I had to choose between like a really super hoppy IPA and this, I'd choose this in a heartbeat. Even if that IPA was like Clown Shoes or something like that, like a really, really, really good, or that's not the name of it. It's not Clown Shoes. It's whatever. One of my favorite like beers that are an IPA is, if it was one of those, I would be okay with it. I would still choose this, over that.
Yeah, I can feel you there.
Anyways, so this has been, did you have anything else that you want to say?
I think I'm good.
All right. This has been Season 7, Episode 2 of the Beer and Broadband Podcast. Supposed to come out on April 8th, 2024. So somewhere around then, it'll be released. And thank you for listening. Otherwise, we'll catch you next time.